Hello, my name is Hope Welty, and I would like to thank you for joining us in Del Campo High School's Coug Media Studio as we take the time to speak with candidates for the San Juan Unified School District's Board of Education. Each of our videos will start up with a 2-minute introduction by the candidate. Then I will ask the candidate a series of questions that our parents, staff, students, and community members submitted, and our student staff helped select. Each candidate is asked the same questions, so if you'd like to hear another candidate's response, you'll be able to in their video. Candidates have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question to make sure that we can get all the questions in and that all the candidates have equal opportunity to respond. Our district office friend, Elizabeth Zeladon, will keep track of time and let us know if we approach the 2-minute mark. After questions, the candidate will have up to a 2-minute closing statement, so be sure to watch all the way through the end. Now let me introduce Ben Avey, who is running to represent Trustee Area 6. Hello, candidate Avey. Please begin with your opening statement.
Why, thank you, Hope. As Hope mentioned, my name is Ben Avey, and I'm running in Trustee Area 6, which is the Fair Oaks community. Now, it's nice to be back at Del Campo. I actually graduated from Del Campo many, many years ago. I grew up in this neighborhood. I went to Will Rogers, I went to Dewey. This was my home, this was my community. Now, I have 4 children of my own, and they too are going to district schools. And unfortunately, I don't feel that they have the same experience that I had growing up. San Juan Unified had the best schools in the region when I was in the district. Today, we can't say the same. At best, we're average. We have some really good programs and we have some really good schools. But on the whole, we are average. In many cases, we're below average. And that's why I'm running for school board. I want to return our focus back to the kids. I want to focus on doing what is best for them all of the time. It's easy to creep away from doing what's best for kids when you look at all of the distractions in the world today. But we have to get back to doing that. That has to be our focus. And that's why I'm running. I'm running to put kids first in education, both for my kids, for your kids, and for our community. Thank you.
Question number 1. San Juan Unified stopped providing home-to-school transportation more than a decade ago. What can be done to help make sure that students can get to and from school safely?
Home to school transportation is vital. Obviously, if you can't get to school, then you're not going to be successful. But if you take one step back from that, if your biggest stressor of the day is how to get to school, when you hit a certain age, you just stop going. We can't allow that to happen. I think first and foremost, we can look at busing. We can look at traditional means of getting kids to school using buses. But I think there's also a lot of opportunities to look at. Let's look at the gig economy. Let's look at the sharing economy. Let's look at innovative new ways that we can use to get people to and from our schools so that kids can succeed. We know that when a kid shows up for school, they will be infinitely more successful if they're not there. That's obvious, right? But if we eliminate the stress of getting to school, the stress of being hungry at school, the stress of where they're going to sleep at night, we know that they're going to have the ability to focus more on education, focus more on their learning, and focus more on getting the best grades and achieving the best outcomes possible.
Many families were impacted by the change to start times this school year, whether it be by lack of supervision in the morning before school or a time crunch after school trying to fit in activities. What supports did you see the district implement to help families adjust, and what else do you think could be done?
I think the school start times were incredibly difficult for many families. I can tell you from my own experience in my own school community, people's lives were completely shifted. Unfortunately, I know there's a lot of other kids and families that may not have the flexibilities that my kids' friends have. If you do shift work, your boss isn't going to move what time you start work. So I do think we have to provide support to parents, we have to provide support to students to figure out how do we manage before school, after school, how do we quite frankly change all of our daily routines. It used to be after school sports were from 3 to 5. Well, now it's more like 4 to 6. That changes dinner, that changes other activities in the evening. So we have to look at how do we shift everything to match up with those times to make things a little bit easier. I will say I think the district did a pretty good job of trying to ease us into that transition over time. I don't think it took away all the sting, but I think it made it a little bit better than what I've seen in some other school districts where it really was a sudden hit. But I do think we need to continue to work on, especially before school, activities to help support students. And I think that may be as easy as supporting more access to recess time in the mornings for kids. Right now, they're very limited on when they can get to school each day. Let's open that up. Let's provide a little bit more opportunity for parents to drop kids off and get to work so everybody can be successful.
Most districts in California, including San Juan Unified, are facing declining student enrollment at those schools. Why do you think this is, and what ideas do you have to combat declining enrollment?
Declining enrollment is a symptom. It is a symptom of parents who are losing confidence in the district, and they are taking their kids to private school, they're taking their kids to charter schools, they're taking their kids to other school districts. I think everybody knows somebody that's moved to another state recently. Like it or not, that's the fact. We can't go after the symptom. We have to look at the problem. Why are parents pulling their kids out of school? I can tell you a lot of parents pulled their kids out for private schools during the pandemic. Other schools were open. Other schools were providing activities for kids. Other schools were being flexible and adapting to the circumstances so that kids could get the in-person instruction that they needed, the in-person support that they needed. I couldn't help but noticing all around campus you have signs for 988. That's the Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Crisis Line. That's the kind of resources we're providing kids right now because of what they went through in the pandemic. That's part of declining enrollment. We have to look at this square in the eye. We have to acknowledge the problem. We have to look at real solutions that work for parents. If parents don't have confidence in the district, they will continue to find other resources, other schools, other opportunities for their kids. We can't allow that to happen if we want to have strong public schools.
What can San Juan Unified do to provide classes that have meaning to students and learning that can be used in the real world?
Meaning in the real world is the foundation of context, right? If you want somebody to truly understand math, apply it to a situation where that person is actually going to encounter that math problem. Help them understand the context in which it's going to be used. Now, that's really difficult, especially in California, because we have fairly rigid curriculum standards. And we have to look at how do we work within those curriculum standards to find the flexibility, to find the context, to help students find the joy in what they're learning. Because if you help them find the joy, then they are more apt to learn it, they are more apt to succeed. I think career technical education is a wonderful place to really highlight that. If you apply math into an engineering curriculum, you have kids that would otherwise hate math just eating it up because there's the context. If you apply science to fire technology, you're going to have kids that are more interested in it. But part of that is finding the flexibility, not just within the career tech field, but finding that flexibility within the everyday classroom. I've seen some teachers that do some amazing things. I can tell you my kids' teachers have been fantastic. Unfortunately, I've seen other teachers that have not been fantastic, that have not been great. And they really are looking at lesson plans and curriculum that are in the past, that do not provide context for students of today. And we really have to look at how do we improve that? How do we bring everybody up to the same level? So again, we have the schools that are the envy of the region.
What role does the Board of Education play in making sure that we have the highest quality teachers and staff to serve students and family?
The role of the Board of Education is, I think, far more vast than people give it credit for. I kind of see it in three different ways. The first, the role of the board is to ask hard questions. The role of the board is, while they do not direct the staff, it's important to ask those key questions, those uncomfortable questions that as a leader are going to drive your teams to be better, that are going to drive people to find the answers that aren't easy. If you ask the hard questions and if you make the situation uncomfortable, people will strive to get better. That's the role of the board. A lot can be done in asking a question. Obviously, the board has a huge role in the budget. You know, budgets are a reflection of our ideals. What's in a budget tells you what a school board cares about. And I think we need to look at those budgets, and we need to look at how much money we are focusing on education and putting into the classroom. The last issue is they hire and fire the superintendent of schools. Unfortunately, we just recently had our superintendent resign, and the board chose to use a closed-door process to hire a new superintendent. The most consequential decision that our community will face in a generation. And there was no community feedback. There was no parent advisory board. There wasn't even an open hearing where people got to meet the superintendent before that person was hired. And that's unfortunate, because the superintendent is a key mechanism to influence and direct the view of the Board of Education.
With more than $1 billion in community-supported bond funds, San Juan has been able to do a lot to improve and rebuild facilities. Do you support more bonds in the future? And how would you prioritize which schools the funds are spent at?
This is going to be a very wonky answer, but I will say no two bonds are alike. Every time you adopt a bond, you adopt unique rules around that bond of what it can be used for, how it can be used, and everything pertaining to the spending of those funds. So I don't want to say whether I would support a future bond or not, quite simply because I don't know what that bond is actually going to do. I think some of the projects that they've done with this latest bond were fantastic. The Science Center here at Del Campo is pretty amazing. A lot of the other campus improvements have been pretty amazing. But I will say I've been disappointed. I think two of our schools, San Juan High School and Encina High School, long felt to be the most neglected high schools in the region. I don't believe that they've had their signature projects yet. And it's unfortunate that the schools that feel the most neglected were last for their signature projects. And I'd like to see that as a failing of the bond. Those are the kinds of things that we have to address up front. We have to look at the needs in the community and make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind. And if they feel that they're being left behind, we need to have a conversation with them. We need to let them understand what the plan is and why we're doing it the way that we're doing it. And at the end of the day, it's going to be best for them. Because right now, while the bond has been fantastic for a lot of communities, there's a couple of neighborhoods that feel like they've just been left out.
What would you like to specifically see done to improve safety on school campuses?
School safety is of paramount concern. Students can't learn if they don't feel safe. Just this week, I was interviewing with the Sacramento County Deputy Sheriff's Association, and thankfully they endorsed me, and I'm appreciative of that because their job is to keep us safe. But what we talked about is I think we need to build the relationship with the Sheriff's Department and the community service officers that are here on school. We need to build those positive relationships between law enforcement and the students outside the negative aspects of them coming in to arrest somebody or coming in for a poor outcome. We need to build that relationship so that students feel safe and feel comfortable speaking to law enforcement, going to them when there's a problem, and hopefully preventing some of the catastrophes that we've seen in other schools. School safety really is about partnership. It's building the partnership with the police, it's building the partnership with the schools and teachers and leadership, but most importantly, it's building partnerships with students. And if we're not including all three of those groups in the conversations, we're never going to truly have safe schools.
What is the single most impactful thing you can do as a board member to make sure that the district and its schools remain financially sound and have balanced budgets?
Sound budgets, balanced budgets, it's the hardest thing to do in politics because that means you have to say no. Everybody has a worthwhile program. Everybody has a cause that's important to them and impacts people. As a school board member, you have to be able to say no. You have to be able to pick and choose what gets funded and what doesn't. Because otherwise you just end up funding everything, but not enough for it to actually make the difference. I think this election is going to be absolutely critical from a budget perspective because right now we're in a great shape. There's been a lot of money that's come from the state, a lot of money that's come from the feds. There's a ton of money within the school district right now. But unfortunately, those days are coming to an end. We know that after a crisis, support floods in. And unfortunately, about a year or two later, it floods out. And we're going to have to manage the budget from that context, from a budget perspective that isn't able to fund all the things that we have today. And when we do that, we have to look at it from a student's first perspective. What is going to benefit students the most? That is the only question we should ask. How do we help students? How do we make sure that they're successful? What are the nice to have things that don't help students? Do we fund those? I don't know. But that's only a consideration after we factored in what's absolutely necessary to put students first.
Like many of the adults in our community, some students are struggling with their mental health and resiliency. What is the school district's role in supporting student mental health, and what would you do as a board member to make sure it happens?
So this is a really hard question, because I think during the pandemic, we all felt the strain on our lives. If you talk to most parents, it was chaos. We literally saw our kids crumbling in front of us, and there was nothing that we could do. My day job is with an organization that runs the suicide hotline, and I can tell you the calls that we had never received so many calls from school-aged kids, and it was heartbreaking. And that absolutely is continuing today. That trauma still sits inside of all of us, and it can't be ignored. What I'll say we can do is we need to look at how do we bring kids back in? How do we re-engage them? How do we bring them out of their room? How do we bring them off of their screen? How do we get them back into sports and arts and education and get them active again? You know, it's funny, but I look at school dances. How do we bring back school dances and get kids to participate in them again and make them feel safe? There is a way we can do it. We need to continue to do it. I think that we'll have participation more than we ever have. But we have to look at all of those activities. We have to look at that engagement and recognize that that is a response to trauma. It's not just a fun thing that we want to do because, you know, it makes us feel good. It's a trauma response. It's a mental health response. It's what we have to do for our kids. And I think if we do that over time, I think all of us will be able to manage it, to move on, and figure out how to be successful.
Do unions have too much power in California schools?
If you go to a school board meeting, there is a designated space on the agenda every meeting where unions get to speak. Nobody else does. Nobody else in the community. They get designated time to share their opinion on whatever they feel is important. During the pandemic, they used that time to explain why schools should be shut down. They used that time to explain why they should get increased benefits if we were to reopen schools. Parents were not given that opportunity. All of the bond projects that were worked on with the money that we discussed in an earlier question, all of those had project labor agreements attached to them, meaning that we had to pay prevailing wage a higher cost for every project that we worked on. Now, I'll leave it to the voters to decide whether it's appropriate for education unions to have designated space on every school board agenda when nobody else does, whether it's appropriate for bond money to pay elevated pay for projects when that money could be going elsewhere. Those are the decisions you have to look at as a school board, and you have to decide, who do you want to hear from? Who do you want to give space to? Who do you want to give money to within your projects? I think we have to look at the role of unions in schools, within public spaces, because if we're not doing justice to our kids. Because right now, I think we spend too much time focusing on their needs rather than on the needs of our students.
As students, we see acts of hate speech and bias on our campus. As a board member, what would you do to address these concerns?
America is the greatest country on earth. I stand by that statement in every way, shape, or form, and I would be happy to have that conversation with anybody. But I'll also say that we have a tragic, tragic past with racism, bigotry, slavery that cannot be ignored. We cannot ignore the sins of the past. We have to be forthright. We have to hit it head on. We have to have conversations about it. We have to learn about it. That's how you address racism and bias on a school campus. by having the conversation, by talking about what happened, by talking about what shouldn't happen, by talking about people's perspectives and understanding where they're coming from. There's a lot of times where somebody may say something not realizing that it hurts somebody else. We need to have that conversation to help elevate that level of understanding, because at the end of the day, most people are good people and they don't want to hurt people. But if you don't have a facilitated conversation, if you don't have an opportunity for people to meet each other and understand each other, and that goes both ways, then you're truly never going to address the problem. You're just going to end up calling people names. So we need to have conversations, we need to be open, we need to be forthright, and we need to talk about it as a community.
How have you seen the district listen to the voice of students, and what other ideas do you have for how student voice can be expanded?
The district, I'll say this, I don't know how the district has listened to students. I don't know how the district hears their voice, because parents are largely not involved in those conversations. I can tell you that me and other parents have advocated for couple of years now, trying to allow parents to become more involved in the process, and we have been hit with barriers at every turn. During COVID, we asked for a simple question. We just wanted COVID to be placed on the agenda of the school board meeting so we could talk about it. At each meeting, have an open discussion. It was the most consequential issue of the day. The school board refused to do it. They refused to put that item on the school board agenda, and so we couldn't talk about it. We've asked to have town halls. We were told no. We asked for simple things like just being able to comment virtually at school board meetings after they went back to in-person, because it's really hard for parents with kids to come to a school board meeting. We were told no. From our perspective, based on what we've asked for and what we've seen, there's a willful disregard for the opinions of parents. I think we saw it with the superintendent search. At every turn, they don't invite our comment. And when they do, it tends to be window dressing. So I can't speak to the relationship the district has with students. I have heard that they do seek out student opinion. I saw that they're having a dress code committee. I think that's fantastic. But what I think they need to do is to mirror that level of engagement with their level of engagement with parents and the community.
Thank you, candidate Avey. Do you have a closing statement you would like to share?
Well, at first, I'd just like to say thank you, Hope. I'd like to thank all of the students that are helping with this production. It is quite a production, and I'm proud of the Del Campo students that are here. You're making your alumni proud. You know, I'm running for school board for a very simple reason, which is I have 4 kids in school, and I see what they're going through, and I want to be a voice for them. It's very different when you see your child going through something than when you see it from across the street or watch it on TV. For me, it's not theory. When I see the school board act, I know the consequence for my own child, and I want to make sure that I'm on that dais representing my children, your children, representing the children that are going to grow up and make up the future of our community. I grew up with great schools. San Juan Unified was the envy of the region. Today, we're average at best. We can do better, the district is better, the teachers are better. We know we can do it if they're provided the right support, they're provided the right direction, and they're pushed to be as good as we know they are. I can tell you that I played sports, and my best coaches were the ones that pushed me beyond what I thought was possible. I didn't like them at the time. It was hard, it was frustrating, but they made me a better athlete, they made me a better person, they made me a better father. Today, I hope to join the school board so that I can help make the district better, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to go and watch every candidate's video, and please go out and vote.